Happy New Year, Krav Lifers. I'm Paul Simos, and today on Train to Fight, the New Year's edition, we're doing our top 10 interviews and interview moments from 2021. Now, I'm going to be honest, this was one of the hardest projects I've ever done, and it could easily have been our top 50 or 100 moments. Just settling on 10 was really difficult. Who knows? Maybe I'll do a part two. So, what I did was pick 10 clips that I found interesting from 10 of our most popular interviews, and I compiled them here for you. But I do encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch all the interviews we've done. Each and every one of them has information in them that's guaranteed to make you a better Kravist. So, be sure to head over to www.mykravlife.com and join our free Krav Life community for more training and to network with the best Kravists in the world. So, without further delay, here are 10 awesome moments from 2021. Okay, so what do you define as the practical skills versus the skills needed to be a fighter?
So first, it's all about the length you're going to train. Okay. If you come to me and tell me you want self-defense and you have like a week, I'll tell you go buy a German Shepherd. Mm-hmm. But if you have, let's say, several weeks, it's going to be way more towards aggressiveness. And you teach more, almost like quick and dirty. You need to teach very, very fast, very, very quick aggressiveness, and the mentality is almost even more important. So you have some foundation, you have the principle. When you teach someone to long range, you want to start with the foundation, with the movement, and then to add the aggressiveness into it. Because, coordination-wise, when you start working very strong, you're going to lock movements in your body that's going to be very hard to change later. So if you start very aggressive, and everybody that's just starting, they don't have perfect technique. So then you lock imperfect technique that's going to be pretty hard to change. So in a perfect world, we have lots of time. We start with foundation, light technique, add to that aggressiveness, add to the tactical. And again, of course, there are things that not very contradict, but when you're in a real fight, you want to be as effective as you can. Mm-hmm. And as effective as you can doesn't look the same like a sport fighting, like a combat sport fighting. But there is advantage to do both.
Okay, what are some of the advantages?
So, for example, we know if you ask probably every self-defense instructor will tell you the same principle. First, try to avoid fight, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's the first. Second, if you do it all the way. Go what we call maximum damage, minimum time. Be aggressive. I don't think that someone will debate the fact that aggressiveness is very, very important. Yeah. But question, how you build aggressiveness? Okay. Now, aggressiveness, there's a few ways to build it. But in my opinion, in the end of the day, if you need to fight, you need to practice fighting. Now, in order to practice fighting, you need to get punched in the face. You need to get struggle. You need to fight. It's very hard to do that under Krav Maga, no rules. The fight is very, very short. Everybody will get back home injured. Unless you have like full equip, and then also it's not the same. So when you start doing, when you practicing sparring, when you're practicing grappling, when you struggle wrestling, all these, form of fighting makes you a better fighter. Now you need always to kind of remember that some things you want to do differently. You rather to go to the kick to the groin than to do low kick if you're not a very, very strong person. So it's always the balance between keep doing sparring and skills that will give you timing and range and to be versatile versus staying practical, staying very, very tuned to realistic situations.
All right. So, you definitely think that that practicing these other combat sports, right, helps your Krav Maga by giving you a little bit of I don't want to say experience, yeah, just simulating a little bit of like what it's really like then.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? In fact, all the great Krav Maga instructors that do courses which kind of short or very, very practical, if you look at the background, they all did something before.
Yeah.
It's when they teach people in short time frame, yeah, they take people with some experience in the end of the day. And of course, the Krav Maga gave the very important shift and a very important focus to all these skills, and you need to keep practicing and remind your student and to yourself, because otherwise, the way you practice on the mat, this is the way you're going to react outside.
Yeah, and I think the situational awareness, right? That's more of an experience thing, right? Because people that live in dangerous areas, they're more naturally situationally aware than someone that's grown up in a rich area where nothing happens.
We are animals. Whatever you're accustomed to do, you will do. Simple as that. Simple as that. You cannot. I don't know what. You cannot take a student and say to him, "Come to my workshop. I will teach you how to kill in 3 hours." You cannot do that. I'll tell you a nice story. A guy once, a very good instructor, told me that he is teaching his students to work with a baton, okay, with a stick, as a weapon of self-defense if they encountered it on the street. He told me the story. I was polite. I listened. At the end of the story, I asked him, "Tell me, brother, did you ever smash a stick to somebody's head?" He said to me, "No." Do you think that your students will have the audacity to take a stick and to break somebody's head, crack it open? He said, "I don't know." I said to him, "That's the problem. You can do whatever you want to do, but if your students are not accustomed, they don't have it in them, what do you think will happen when the shit hits the fan and the adrenaline dump happens and the tunnel vision happens and they're afraid? What do you think? Do you think that they can operate?" The same with situational awareness. If you don't have the experience, if you don't have the right training, you can call it whatever you want. Under stress, all of that will go out the window as fast as you can, I don't know what, do. So no terminology, is just training.
Yeah. So what sort of training do you do to help prepare your students for that, like for that stress that happens?
We fight. But we're keeping it safe because I don't want my students to be injured. So let's talk about the weekly schedule. The first training will be a technical training dealing with the problem that the instructor decided to deal with. Okay. Then we will take this problem and we will break it into pieces: technical, fighting, and aggression. With this is practically what you need and stress. This is practically what you need. Let's say, I will give you an example. I'm going to teach my students how to defend from a stab from above. Okay. First training will be technical. Then I will take this. I will employ it with good striking abilities. I will employ it with aggression when the aggressor really wants to kill you. And at the end of the week, I will take all the pieces of the puzzle, combine them together, and will give them 1 hour of hell, because this will make them better. Okay? Instead of my pinky is here, my pinky is there, do exactly what I tell you to do. I want them better fighters at the end of the week. This will make their survival possibility go higher, not down.
At the end of the day, self-defense is about being aware to what happens to you. Mm-hmm. If, I'm always saying this to my students, if you are with your headphones, I say to also to my daughter, I have a 17-year-old daughter. She loves her iPhone and she loves music, and she's always with earbuds listening to music. I'm telling her, look, I have no problems. Enjoy music. But when you're walking in the street, it's basic self-defense not to get run over by a car. Forget about being attacked. So instead of having it in full volume, less. Right. When you go to a crossing, take one out. So you will be aware and you will be connected to what happens to you. If it's at night, maybe you don't put it on. So you're aware of what's going on around you, because this will stop everything. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because once you're aware and you see it coming, it's done. It's not going to happen. Okay? This is the major thing people don't understand. I think attackers look for victims.
Right.
Okay? If you are a victim, you are going to get attacked. The attacker will choose you because you're a victim. What is a victim? I don't know. Because every attacker attacks somebody that fits his victim type. I have a friend, mm-hmm. I'm telling the story all the time. He was in Brazil, I think, walking with another friend of his in a big market, and they were a separate part, like 2-3 meters away. Each one was on the phone. And this guy is an ex-special unit, Krav Maga instructor, was working a little bit as a bodyguard in the Israeli Secret Service. A guy who can fight and can defend himself. And still, because he was on the phone in a different country, he got surprised. Somebody came to him from the side, put a gun to his side, and told him, give me your phone, give me your money, nice and easy. Nobody saw the gun, he just felt it. And that's it. And what happened? He tried to be smart. He tried to do something. The attacker was smarter than him. Luckily for him, he didn't get shot. The attacker immediately put him, relaxed him. He was prepared. The next thing that big fighter did was give him his cell phone, give him his money, and bye-bye.
Yeah.
And that's it. So it doesn't matter who you are. If you're not ready, you don't see what happens, mm-hmm. you are going to get fucked. Sorry, pardon my French.
No
but
problem.
You are going to get fucked.
Yeah.
And talking about South America, yes, and there are places there that I heard that they are, at night there is signs on the crossing and the red lights, do not stop, just continue. Red lights, do not stop, continue. You don't see this in Europe, but there is a reason why. Yeah. Okay, so when I was there and I was teaching in Pretoria, I was teaching courage seminar, but I did whatever I do everywhere in the world when I'm teaching it. First thing, when you have a fear that something like this happened, you lock your doors automatically. So today, every car locks automatically. Okay, back then, I'm talking to you about 20 years ago when I was there. So you press a button and you lock the whole doors. And the windows are up. And, whenever you see a suspicious person, you just go. You don't wait. You don't check. Okay, and you don't stop in places that are problematic. Another example, I was teaching in Panama. I did a special course in Panama. And we were 3 instructors, me, a Krav Maga, and 2 shooting instructor, tactical instructor. And the local guys told us, look, guys, you have 3 white people in a big SUV. Don't be with the open windows. Do not put your hands out, because we all had this kind of G-Shock beautiful watches, and they were telling us, somebody will come with a big machete, will chop your hand off just for your watch.
Wow.
So, close the freaking window. And what we did, nice people, closing the window, there is air conditioning in the car. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
When you are aware, you do prevention. So if you can prevent, that's the best self-defense.
Remember. So whereas years ago, our style of Krav Maga would consist of, for this wrist grab, we're going to use an amazing technique that I learned in ninjutsu. And for this choke, we're going to use a fantastic technique that I learned from a grappling instructor. But it becomes one technique for this and one technique for that. And then the moment the truth, you say, wait a minute, was that ninjutsu or jujitsu? Which technique is that? And you forget.
Right.
But if you take a few simple principles and say we're going to use the same principle again and again and again and again, simple people like us can remember it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you, just if I may, one other analogy of the way that I try to inculcate people with this idea. I say, you want to see a grown man or a woman cry in half an hour. So I say like this. Imagine you went to if you went to college for 4 years or longer, and you studied something that you are no longer using. Meaning if you studied history and now you're a high school history teacher, this won't apply to you. If you studied science and now you're a scientist, doesn't apply. But if you studied, like me, Soviet foreign policy, right? And for 4 years, which was a great career choice.
Yep.
So, so if I say, like, if I studied Soviet foreign policy, and I'm a fairly intelligent person, a fairly good student, and you say, okay, now Moshe, you have half an hour, take, one of these pieces of paper, what they call A4, you got half an hour, write down your name. First, write down your name, then write down how much money did you spend on your college education. And then over the next half hour, fill 2 sides of the page with information that you remember from your 4 years in college. I want to bet a lot of money, Paul, that people will be turning in empty papers, but they'll be wet from tears.
Yep.
Because they'll say, I spent $80,000, 4 years of my life, and I can't fill 2 sides of a piece of paper. Because the way we learn things is memorization. And if I went to college 20 years ago or 10 years ago, I don't remember anything. Yeah. So I can say I went to college, I can show you a diploma, but what's it worth? But if college taught me how to think, how to analyze, then I gained something of value. So I tell my students, I often forget the technique myself, but I remember the concept. And sometimes we'll face a new gun threat or a new knife situation, and I'll forget the technique we did 3 months ago, but I'll apply the same principles, and I'll come up with a technique which will turn out to be a slight improvement over what we did previously. And they'll say, oh, did you change that technique? Well, I might have. Let me go look at the old video and I'll tell you if I did. Because I don't remember what I did 3 months ago. I don't have a photographic memory. So I take these simple concepts, the principles. So when people like write to me and they say, I want to earn a black belt in your style or a blue belt, how many techniques do I need to know? I say, we're not technique-based, we're concept-based. So they say, you don't have techniques? Well, of course we have techniques. Of course we have techniques. But the techniques are secondary to the concepts. If you understand the concept, the technique is simply a derivative of that concept. Because you might, A, forget the technique, because we're just human, and B, you may encounter a situation that I never covered because I was unfamiliar with it. You may be living in a country where the crime is different. You may be in Brazil where crime is different than Israel or Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Every country has slightly different culture of crime. So I can teach you something that applies to me, but there'll be a situation that will come up in Brazil that I'm not familiar with. But you can take those concepts and still defend yourself by applying them. So it doesn't depend upon the memorization.
It's like a principle-based teaching rather than technique-based teaching.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's kind of like very traditional martial arts is technique based. It's like you got to know these techniques for white belt, these for yellow, these where with principle based, it's kind of, well, here's the situation, now apply the principles.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly, because like I said, we forget, we encounter new situations, or what may work for me may not work for somebody 6'10" or overweight or broad shouldered. It might not work. I may teach a technique where you're being grabbed in a choke, in a what do you call it, behind the back pretzel, and I'm saying reach over and grab your arm, like this or something. And there'll be a guy who can't reach his arm because he's just so big that he can't reach his own arm. So what? He can't do the technique? No. So you say, grab your belt, grab your shirt, grab his belt, apply the concept. And then I've often had situations, people call me out and say, hey, this is Alex from South Africa. I was just held up and I did the following thing. Did I do the right technique, sensei? And I'll say, are you calling from heaven? No. From the morgue? No. From the hospital? No. Then yeah, you did the right technique.
Well, yeah, because in the end, that's what Krav Maga is, right? Just to go home safe, right?
Yeah.
Like, in my mind, okay, the way I see fighting,
Mhm.
I don't teach self-defense. Okay, for me, self-defense is a legal term. Well, that means that if me and you would get into a fight and whatever, I would knock you out, something, and I get arrested, there's paperwork after a fight. I don't know if people realize it or not, but there's, in many cases, paperwork you could claim for self-defense, and maybe legally it is self-defense or maybe not, right? But I don't try to defend myself in a fight. I try to kick your ass.
Right.
If you attack me, I attack you right back. I think self-defense, even the term, puts you in a weaker point towards your opponent because the line of defense is always going to get breached. So if one person is coming merely to defend himself, and one person is coming, to stab you, to shoot you, to whatever, he will probably win. But if you understand that you have to attack and you have to, finish the threat as fast as possible, that's a whole other mindset. And that's a military mindset. And by the way, there shouldn't be a difference between a military mindset and a civilian mindset because a fight's a fight.
Yep.
However, I understand that, as an instructor, you don't want to scare students. It's not the same kind of people usually coming to those classes or to those classes. You know what I mean? But that's I would say that the main difference is the mindset.
So in your civilian classes, do you try and change that mindset? Do you educate them and say, you know what, no, we're not doing self-defense, so get that out of your mind. This is hand-to-hand combat.
You do.
Yeah.
Because if here's the thing, and this is one of the problems I have with the Krav Maga world. I travel all around the world giving seminars, and at least the first time I meet people, I would say that, what all the Krav students have in common? They're all victims in their head.
Right.
All of them. They have a victim mentality. The big bad guy is going to attack me, and I'm going to have to do this and try to defend. But that is a wrong attitude to have. Think about it like this. You're a Krav instructor, right? What kind of people go to train Krav or other self-defense systems, right?
Yeah.
People who are afraid of fighting. I mean, that's why they go, because they want to learn how to defend themselves, their family, maybe something happened to them or they're hurt, right? If someone loves fighting, he goes and does Thai boxing or MMA, because that's what he loves to do. And I come from both worlds because I coach MMA for many years, and you can see the difference in the people, right? But it's the Krav Maga's instructor's job to take that person who is afraid of fighting and to make him like fighting, because not like it, you don't have to like the violence, but fear is a real thing. Sometimes parents will tell their kids, hey, there's nothing to be afraid of, but that's not true. If a kid says that he's afraid, it's a real thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the only way that I know to deal with fear is to do what you're afraid of, right? So if someone has a fear of heights, he's got to deal with, you got to jump out of a plane or something, go rock climbing. If someone's afraid
Mhm.
of a fight, what does he have to do to get rid of that fear? He has to fight.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so sparring. That's why sparring. One of the reasons why sparring is so important.
Yeah.
I mean,
So how? Because obviously it's because you're absolutely right. The mentality of an MMA, someone coming into MMA or Thai boxing is completely different mindset than someone looking for self defense. So how do you get your self defense students into that mindset? Because you can't
gradually,
if you okay.
gradually. There's steps you take. There's steps you take because if someone the medicine, right? So I know this guy is afraid of fighting. He needs to fight.
Mhm.
But if that guy in the first class comes and I put the gloves on and say, "Oh, go fight," he's never coming back again.
Right.
You're like, these guys are crazy, So you build it up. You build it up slowly, But you could build it up because, I've been doing it all my life basically, and also you take movements like you have in boxing or in wrestling. People don't know them in the beginning, and but once they train after a few months or after a year, they're doing it out of a habit already. You know,
Mhm.
so you could build it up as well. Um, we have a women's class, for example, special women's class, and all these women have been attacked or something. So and they're kind of afraid of men, so it's a women only class.
Right.
And what we do is first, you know, slowly we'll build it up. So first stage is they only hit, no one hits them back. So they can hit the bag or person wearing the vest, as hard as they could, but no one's hitting the back. Second part will be they're still hitting. The other person is now shouting at them. He's not touching them. He's just
Okay.
shouting. But then the fourth part will be they're still striking as hard as they could, but he is not striking hard, but he's just kind of touching them a little bit, pushing them around. No force yet, and shouting. Last stage, and he's going at them,
Right.
and they're going at him right back. They don't even notice the change in them, you know.
Mm.
But you could build it, just like you
And
could build an 18-year-old soldier from Facebook to fighting material. You could build any person with a good instructor,
yeah. And on average for you, like how long of a process is that? That's not like one class. That's
No, depending
couple.
how many times a week a person will come,
Yeah.
I would say it could take about a year.
What is like your kind of philosophy on Krav Maga when you're teaching your students?
So we are at the stage of development.
Mhm.
When I have shared Krav Maga with our participants, the philosophy is to build on mixed martial arts.
Mhm.
It'll be a very realistic philosophy because um, in any community there'll be tension. Lately, even more tension in current times.
Mhm.
Um, Tension, and when that is in your consciousness. Um, Krav Maga originally had its founder Imi speaking about the idea of so that one may walk in peace.
Mhm.
However, I like to build upon his philosophy, and I respect the founder. Um, I believe the idea would be so that one may walk together, or we may walk together, and that is that is the philosophy where we are all inclusive,
Mhm.
and we would like to have a common ground before we go into the special mechanics of Krav Maga. common ground is mixed martial arts, and we would then pick that and build upon that, and even build ourselves upon that as well, as instructors as well.
Okay. So do you focus in your Krav Maga instruction more on the kind of de-escalating and avoiding the conflict, or is it more about aggression? Is it more about self-defense? What part do you see as the most important?
It's funny that you say that, because I had a question of my own master when I learned Krav Maga from him. And I asked him, I asked him along the same question that you shared, with a little bit more refined. What's the application of Krav Maga in context of the law? So I got to study a little bit of the legal aspects within my country, and I could share for everyone that's listening. In Singapore, the legal fundamentals is of self-defense is reasonable, something that's practical. So in some other countries, you might have laws based on other systems, but the key word is reasonableness. And in Singapore, legislation will actually overcome any form of lifestyle. So if your lifestyle is Krav Maga, if your lifestyle is if you're an engineer, if you have some kind of philosophy, if you're in technology and you have a way of living, you have a way of going about living the best way you know how, and the things that convenience you may not be common ground for the country. Okay, so in this country, what is reasonable? Reasonable is where you defend yourself to a degree that does not hurt the other person. However, reasonable could also mean that you do not get into a encounter that's unreasonable. So while practicing Krav Maga, I keep that in mind, that and I share with the community that in this country it's about how to be reasonable and not to be unreasonable encounters. So if Krav Maga is in your system, avoidance is the practice within this country. Okay, so now with that said, that would not be the same for all countries. Like in some countries, you're allowed to carry your own weapons. You are not living in a tight knitted community, just walking down the street in the next 50 meters, and you just see a neighbor. You're in the next house. You're the next neighborhood in 50 meters or 100 meters. That is how the country is built. It's small, so everything is built to precision. However, if you're living in a country where you're isolated, you're in a part of the countryside, you have to jolly well get all possible means of protection. If you're allowed a gun, keep a gun in your household. If you're allowed sticks and knives, keep that in your household, because it can be daunting to live in an isolated area, and you do not have the common community to actually look after you in that living situation. So I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, that's part of it. I would say, self-defense and combatives or combinations, striking, are two sides of the same coin, right? They can't really exist without each other.
Yeah.
If you have self-defense without effective combatives, it's not helpful. you have combatives without self-defense and you get caught in a position of disadvantage, it's not helpful, right?
Mhm.
So if you think about it this way, I'll give you an example. I asked my students, why would you ever start a combination with a left-right combination? So left jab or left straight, right? Or what is the goal of doing that? So they throw out things like, well, you want to strike them, and then you want to set them up, or you want to measure. And so what they're telling me is they're giving me the idea of a left-right combination in the context of fighting.
Right.
I'm using a left straight to measure, and I'm using my right straight to follow up. Once he covers and opens back up to see what I'm doing. That's all true. But in self-defense, why do we throw certain combatives? And there's really only two answers in my view. The first answer is we throw combatives outside of landing them, right? The other reason we throw them is to move the defense around, to move the defense where we want it. So if we're not successful, our next strike in the combination will be successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when people, and I've asked classrooms and this is hard because Darren used to this to us, he'd ask this question and he's thinking of a specific answer, and there are 200 answers that could be right, if you've ever done that before.
Yes, I've had instructors like that. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, which one does he want?
Yeah, and it's just contextual, right?
Mhm.
And so the idea of it being so many potential answers and then having this specific answer really draws you into it, right? So no one has ever said the reason of throwing a left straight, right straight, left power slap is to move the defense around. No one's ever said that.
Hmm.
And if there's not a defense, just keep going. But if there is a defense and there are instinctive responses, as you know, then what we're doing is moving the defense around. So I said, that's why we don't throw left straight, left straight, left straight, left straight, right straight over and over again, because the defense is going to be set there at some point.
Hmm.
So we start with fundamental ideas around what are we doing and why are we doing it, and what is the context for self-defense? What is a high line? What is a low line? Why does it matter? Right? What's a line? What's a path? How are those combatives different? Why do we use them? And so begin to explore these things with students, and they get a rich knowledge. And then to go to the last point you made, which is getting rid of or keeping combatives, assume that you have a quiver of arrows. There's only so many arrows you can fit in that quiver, right?
Right.
And so the philosophy for me is I could teach 20 different strikes. Or I could limit, I'm just going to give you an example, I could limit us to 7 strikes
Mhm.
that make up a series of combatives, push-play combinations that are effective over a very broad range of self-defense scenarios. And anytime I can simplify something for a student, that's what I want to do.
Nice. All right.
Wait, what I see in Krav Maga is thankfully less worried about technique and more about principles.
Nice.
Because at the end of the day, Krav Maga is so simple. 4 rules, 2 principles, man. That's it. You can fucking have 792 million techniques. But at the end of the day, if you live your life, Krav Maga life, by principles and 4 simple rules, fuck, man, you can get out of almost any scenario.
Mm-hmm. And for the people that are listening, because we've got listeners that are just right beginners to expert levels, can you run down those rules and principles for them?
So the 4 rules are very simple. Deal with the threat, right? You deal with the issue. Whatever the issue is, you deal with it. You counterattack as fast as possible. Counterattack doesn't necessarily always have to be violent. It doesn't always have to be combative. It can be verbal. It can be de-escalation. Disengage or disarm, depending on whether there's a weapon or not. I'm a big believer in disengaging. And then scan and run away. Simple. Mm-hmm. And it applies to every technique we have in the Krav Maga system. There's not one technique that doesn't have one of those 4 or all of those 4 rules. Yeah. And the principles are simple. You have a principle of attack and you have a principle of defense. There's only 2 ways to attack. That's it. Until there's 3 heads and 4 arms and we're all fucking aliens, there's 2 ways to attack. I can attack directly and I can attack indirectly. That's it. Which means I either deflect an attack or I block, stop an attack. That's it. Done. What about never mind which one does it apply to? Which attack is it? And then I'm gonna do the appropriate defense depending on the timeline of which I saw said attack. Done.
Yeah.
Move on. Right? I mean, it's so simple. But now that being said, it's so simple that if we actually, I'm a big believer in just being transparent. If you're making money and you have to expand on things like really, this is how you throw a punch, and you spend 3 months on a punch because you want to get that dollar, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Krav Maga should be lent like this. They should be able to sit there and know a technique that night. Now, are they going to be good at it? No. That's where you make your money, by them being good at the technique, by you being diligent in your professionalism and making sure that they're good to go. But technique-wise, they should be able to deploy those techniques like that.
So how do you, because being that aggressive in your techniques is difficult for a lot of people, especially people that have not ever been in a fight, or they don't have that mentality. How do you get them over that?
Well, it's a process of training. It's a lot of stuff during the training. Some people don't even, didn't do push-ups for years or sit-ups for years, or so they come and, we start with that, and then we, how we punch the stomach, and we do sit-ups, and we hit with the focus mitt on the stomach, or we use medicine balls, or we take sticks and we hit the abdominal area, the obliques and upper lower stomach. I make them tough. They when they start spar body shots and all that, they understand they have to go, otherwise they're getting beat up, so they have to fight. And I put lines, and I go, okay, you don't move from this line, you don't move from this line, and you fight for your home. So slowly, it's a process. There is drills to do that. You build it up with them. You get them to be more aggressive, a little bit, a lot more awareness. So it all starts with drills. There's a lot of good drills to do that. For example, let me give you an example. Okay, I teach them to bob and weave inside the fences and all that, right? And then I teach them, there's drills that you can cover your face like this and someone is punching, but you have to see the punches. You have to keep your eyes open all the time. And then I teach them with their hands down, if someone throws a jab, or the partner works jab or right cross, 10% speed and power, to learn how to headbutt the fist. Okay, so if your hands are down and you see a punch coming, you go right away to it. Okay, it just teaches you not to be scared of it. When you start to teach people not to be scared of things that they are familiar in the school, that they doing it on regular basis, they start not to care. When I don't care to get hit, then I become more vicious. You understand? More tougher. So.
And that's been a big part of my recent research and writing is how, with an amazing skill set, whatever the discipline you've got, can you walk away from somebody who's being a bully or confrontational, or otherwise just being a uncivilized person. And it all, I think, for every martial artist out there at one time or another, it's crept into one's mind, maybe this person ought to be taught a lesson. But the reality of it is, if you teach a bully a lesson, and I'm going to throw out a number, maybe half of them are just going to take the lesson and eschew the lesson. They're not going to think about what they're just getting beaten up or hobbled or whatever else, and they're just going to continue in their ways. So more often than not, it backfires. So as I said, we've got something we kind of coined de-escalation communication, which is how I am able to walk away from somebody, and I can fill you in on that if it'd be of interest.
Sure.
So I can give you a hypothetical. With road rage and everything else, which I've done some research on for this book. If somebody were arguing with me in a parking spot situation or something like that, I don't know where it happens. If in Pennsylvania, it's what they call a shall issue state, and you could very well be armed. And I'm aware of my whereabouts. But let's assume that they're not armed, and let's say that I can take them. I can really destroy anatomy because I know how to do that. But at the same time, how do I avoid that situation and yet not walk away feeling that all that training I've done over the years, all of the tactics which I've tried to master, and most of all my ego, my masculinity, whatever it's going to be, is intact. And Rick taught me this. And the answer, I believe, is to say it was his or her, their lucky day. It's not my lucky day. It's their lucky day that I had the mental fortitude to walk away and think better of the situation.
Yeah, because you almost, if you get into the situation and you completely destroy the person and maybe go further than you expected, you're not going to feel good about yourself. But then if you walk away, you also have that same feeling. So it's lose no matter what. But turning it on its head the way you're talking about and saying, well, they're lucky that they didn't get into the fight with me. I think that
a little bit of ego padding.
Yeah, definitely.
As we age, I think we understand it better. And we get some young students. I'm sure you had the same thing, who want to know if it actually works.
Yep.
And it works. It's been proven. That's what we do. That's what Grandmaster Guidon insists on. That it work. Any tactic work against concerted resistance, and that's a whole other training aspect, which at a little bit of a more advanced level we have to emphasize. A lot of Krav Maga guys take an issue. I take issue with it myself. If somebody, throws a punch and leaves it dangling there, or simply thinks that a one punch is the end of the attack, who holds a knife out there, with a straight stab, who just stabs once and leaves it there for somebody to disarm him, it's not going to happen in all likelihood. So if you don't train against concerted resistance, somebody who's going to try to eviscerate you or beat you to a pulp, it's not effective training in the end.
And so there you have it. My top 10 moments from interviews in 2021. Now, I want to know from you, what are some of your favorite interviews and moments? Is there anyone that you think should have that we should have on the show? If there is, let me know. Just write it in the comments or email me directly at info@mykravlife.com. I want to thank all you guys for your support in 2021, and I look forward to an even better 2022 and hopefully meeting a lot of you guys. All right, so I'm Paul Simos from Krav Life. Until next time, take care of yourself and your loved ones.